Hi, folks, and thanks for joining us today on Let's Talk Careers. Just so that you know, the purpose of these interviews are to give those thinking about getting into a certain career or changing the career path they're on, and to hear different career choices from folks that are already working in these industries from a personal lens. So today I want to welcome Tamara. Tamara is going to be joining us for a while to tell us about her career choice and her path. Thank you, Tamara, for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Catherine.
So can you tell me what your occupation is?
So I own a small business. I own Beyond the Classroom Hamilton Mountain. It's a tutoring company. We provide tutoring services for kids in JK to grade 12 here in the Hamilton area.
And what is the name of your business?
Beyond the Classroom is a friend of mine owns the business, and I have the franchise here in Hamilton. So Beyond the Classroom Hamilton Mountain is
Mm-hmm.
my official business name, registered business name.
Awesome. And have you been doing this long?
3 years. The My third year anniversary came up in the summer with this lovely pandemic. Um, so you know, it's been an amazing year in so many different ways, good and bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how did you get onto this path? Was this like a career choice that you thought of when you were younger? Or did you just kind of stumble into it with your multitude of hats that you've worn over the years?
Yeah, definitely it was a stumble for me. I think that sort of defines my whole career journey, to be honest. That's a good way of putting it. Um, uh, yeah, like, I mean, certainly there's a pathway that sort of leads to different opportunities in life, and my journey to becoming a business owner, uh, there's certainly some connections in along the way. So I do feel like in some ways I finally have arrived,
Mm-hmm.
um, in terms of just sort of being at peace and being really content with my career. And that's a really neat place to be for sure.
Mm-hmm. So did you have to go to school for this? Like what did you do? What skills did you need to acquire to run your own business?
I think so. It was, I mean, it was required in terms of purchasing the franchise that I own. I believe it was a qualification to have a university degree.
Mm-hmm.
But that certainly wasn't something that I had in mind when I was going to school.
Mm-hmm.
I went to school because I finally liked it. I didn't like school so much in high school. I did 2 years of community college in Toronto, which was really just an extension of high school for me,
Mm-hmm.
in many ways, right? Like, it was a great program. Um, I took it pretty much because my mother told me to, and I wanted to go to Toronto.
Mm-hmm.
I grew up in a small community, so I was sort of eager to see what else life could offer. And I took travel and tourism. It
Mm.
was a two year
Wow.
program. I know. So I was just thinking about this too, because I thought, what the heck, 2 years? But the first year really was more like core focused in terms of subjects. Like, I took psychology and literature and communications and
Mm-hmm.
things like that. And then the second year was all specialized to the travel industry, um, which of course I discovered that it really wasn't what I wanted to do. But it was sort of a life situation where I had to do something with it because my parents sort of pulled the plug in terms of support,
Mm-hmm.
money wise. Like, they didn't plan on paying for more than, one kick at the can in terms of
Yep.
post secondary, right? So they helped me for those 2 years, but then I became a travel agent for about a year. And,
Mhm.
you learn, like in hindsight, when our age,
Mhm.
you learn so much in hindsight that in hindsight, I learned a lot from that job. I learned about customer service. I learned
Mhm.
about professionalism, uh, the different travel agents that I worked with. Some were independent travel agents, so they were essentially small business owners, like they worked
Mhm.
for themselves, and some worked for the agency that we were there for. And just the difference in that, I remember those discussions and how they all just laughed at me because I was so young.
Mhm.
And so, anyways, I learned a lot about that, and including that it wasn't what I wanted to do. And I didn't really know what I wanted to do, but I had a really good friend who said that I was smart and that I should go to university.
Mhm.
And that, I guess I wanted to hear that because that's what I did. And I had a roundabout way getting into university as well, because in Ontario, it was back, and I'm dating myself now for sure, but it was when you had to do OAC
Mhm.
credit to get
Yep.
into university. Yeah, and I was a couple shy. I think maybe one, and I was not interested in doing that. So I went out of province and I took a leap. I don't know why, whether it was just teenage rebellion in life sort of
Mhm.
situation, or if it was a greater picture. I don't know what I needed to learn there,
Yeah.
but I had fun. I have good friends there still. So I was in Saskatoon at the University of Saskatchewan for
Mhm.
I think 2.5 years before I switched back to Ontario. I moved back to Ontario and went and finished my degree at Laurier
Mhm.
University. So it took me longer to do it all, but honestly, it's where I found, I think, part of my passion in terms of learning about psychology and people and different cultures. Those courses really appealed to me. But when you graduate, like, where do you get a job?
Mhm.
Right? It was starting to be that situation in the workplace where a Bachelor of Arts degree was common.
Mhm.
So what work experience did you have? Well, like I worked at a travel agency answering phones or arranging flights, but I don't want to do that now.
Yeah.
So I ended up working with people, and I was good at that. I was really good at that. I was able to form relationships and talk, and just it was very casual sort of work.
Mhm.
It became stressful for many reasons. The I've discovered that the system wrecks caring people in terms of caregiver support services, right? All those
Mhm.
good caring people that start, at some point you see them just lose that spark in them or something
Mhm.
because of the system, whatever that may be. Everybody has their different
Yep.
ideas of that too, right? Whether it's
Mhm.
money or mismanagement or whatever, understaffed situations.
Mhm.
It was stressful, but you just carry on and keep working and find better things, better jobs,
Yep.
better ways to help people. And one of them was mental health. So I was working with clients with developmental disabilities, but
Mhm.
we had a couple who were, how do I say, more complex than that even.
Mhm.
They had some types of mental illness that none of us as workers were familiar with. Um, like, so I had a psychology degree. Maybe I recognized some of the terms, but I didn't really know people or what it meant to work with this person.
Mhm.
So I appealed to my employers to help me be a better worker, and I convinced them to send me to a course
Mhm.
that I took at Mohawk College, psychosocial rehabilitation. And
Mhm.
it was a new sort of approach that had come from the States. It was very, my understanding, anyways, is that it was very focused on the individual and what was best for them. Because when you start working, and this is another thing I learned, like, so working with people with developmental handicaps, those services are funded from a different ministry than mental illness. And there was a difference in the systems and how I noticed how they manage. Like, so this was more community based and this was more medical based. But it seemed like it was a lot of the same people who you were working with. And so, anyways, I convinced them to send me to this course. It was awesome. I met a lot of, and I didn't know at the time, like one of my instructors was Terry McGurk, who started the Coast program here in Hamilton. So like I knew this guy before he became famous in Hamilton, and all around actually in terms of the Coast program. But it was just interesting to me. So that education, that course that the employer paid for, ended up getting me a lot of interviews in positions with people with mental illness. So I felt like I was sort of jumping the bridge because of that course. So that was key.
Yeah.
I believe it's still around in some way, shape, or form, but there's always new. If mental health is a focus for people in a career, and you're not like a social worker, with the professional associations is what they often like. But if you're, there's always those special interest courses through colleges and different avenues that can add to your skill set, I think. So that was definitely one that was key for me. And it got me different jobs that got me different opportunities. But they were still in the nonprofit sector. And so that nonprofit sector, like I felt like I would, jump onto a different avenue and then boom, hit the same sort of roadblock. And, but I'm getting married and having kids and stuff like that. You don't have time to really think about, I didn't, about myself or my career or what it is that I truly wanted to do. One thing that I did become certified in delivering training for suicide prevention. And that's a skill and a certification that I had to work, and it costs money and all that sort of stuff. But I still have. And that is sort of, as I've gone through and shook things off over the years, that's something that has stayed with me in my core. And so that keeps me connected always to that industry in some way, shape, or form, right? But it's nice being connected now as a contractor. I get hired to do the trainings. So I just come in, do what I do best, and then leave. I don't have to deal with all of the systemic stuff that would have frustrated me in other roles that I had in the past. So it's cool that way. So then the idea of being self-employed is like, oh, well, this is what I should do. But it was hard. Like, not all people will know, but you might know because of our work together. It's not a training that is going to keep me busy enough to fulfill me in terms of financial compensation. It's a good gig in the day, but it's not steady enough. And I feel like because I've been a trainer for 20 years and I had worked in the roles in the community to sort of arrange those sorts of trainings and stuff, I feel like I know, like we were talking about marketing before we started, like I feel like that's my weakness too. But I feel like when it comes to mental health and specifically suicide prevention training, I know about that, and it's just not busy enough for me anyways. I get lots of good opportunities, but it's not something that I could just do solely. So I've always had to sort of keep that on the side and figure out what I wanted to do next. And when it became a part in my life when I couldn't continue on the same patterns of small nonprofit charity type work, I was burning right out without even realizing
Mm-hmm.
what it was, right? And anyone who's experienced a burnout completely knows that how much of it you realize afterwards. Um, and that took like a while to figure out and get through. But through it came all this clarity, right? Which is, I know it sounds cliche, but that's how it really happened for me. And it led me right back. I felt like I didn't want you don't want to go back, but what can you apply for in terms of work that you're qualified for? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
rejection is not something that I strive for, right? I don't like being rejected over and over again. So
Yeah.
I put thought into what positions I applied for.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I wasn't even getting rejections. A couple I had like an inside connection to say, hey, like, what the heck? Like, why am I not even getting an interview? Like, this is
Mm-hmm.
offensive in a way. And it's because the qualifiers are different now
Mm-hmm.
than what I did. My jobs that even have hints of what I did in the past, they hire people with master's degrees in some ways. So it's really hard in terms of the mental health field and knowing what role you want within that industry in terms of qualifications. So I'm not going back to do my master's degree. That's just not of interest for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt like, again, every time I said back, I didn't want to go back. And anyways, looking forward involves some reconnections with people from the past. And Kathy Thompson was one who, well, actually it was Cheryl Verkland, who I worked with in Hamilton. She was, I don't remember her exact title. I'm going to say like a project coordinator
Mm-hmm.
for CAMH, which is the Center for Addiction and Mental Health.
Mm-hmm.
So we sat on a lot of committees together. We always knew each other. We planned and worked conferences together all around suicide prevention here in Hamilton. Great respect, good rapport. She's younger than me, but we had lots of fun. And I noticed that she had stepped away from that role and had purchased a franchise of Beyond the Classroom.
Mm-hmm.
And that really caught my attention because now I'm in a position in my life where I realize there are some people who, everybody figures out things differently at
Mm-hmm.
different times in their life. And the owner, Kathy, and Cheryl were two who figured it out sooner than me, which didn't surprise me because I always knew they were really smart from working with them, right?
Yeah.
And they were not only smart, but they were really good people. And so I reached out and said, what are you doing? And tell me how amazing it is. And she did. And I got scared and I thought, how can I make this work? And I had to come up with some money to buy a franchise. I just knew it was the right thing for me to do because to start a business, a small business on your own, you need a business plan, you need money,
Mm-hmm.
you need support, you need to be able to figure out how to do things and do it like a systems, not just how you do things,
Yeah.
right? And I've done all elements of that in other jobs, but it wasn't my butt on the line or my
Mm-hmm.
money on the line.
Yeah.
So I had an opportunity. I borrowed some money. I dug into some pockets. It was a hard time, but like so eternally grateful for that because I wouldn't have been able to do it. And it really wasn't that expensive. And like the thing about it for me, it was so much more about my trust and relationship that I had with these ladies. Because I remember my husband, like even just getting the franchise agreement and the strong recommendation of having a lawyer look over it. But I knew Cheryl's lawyer had already looked over it, and the lady who owned the South Mississauga location, I didn't know her, but anyways, I looked at my husband and I said, I just feel like and he just said, do you trust her? I just remember him saying this to me. And I said, yeah, I do wholeheartedly. It was such a strong, intuitive
Mm-hmm.
decision. So I know that's probably not a really good balanced answer for people, but I feel like it was just so many things of both my education and
Mhm.
it set me up for to be able to act on this opportunity.
And your life experience led you to this, obviously.
Yeah, it did, right? Like I really had no other choice. I mean, I was
Hmm.
getting at the time so I bought the franchise in 2017.
Hmm.
And so just before that, I left a job that completely destroyed me in so many ways. And I never thought it would happen. Like I was always the resilient one. But
Hmm.
you're right, it's life, man. Like I've got kids and a husband, and that's enough right there. That's enough right there. But it all sort of comes to a head at some point. And for me, it was right around that age, and I was getting close to 50. And it was just like, what else am I going to do with my life? Like I'm not ready to not do anything.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I had
Mm-hmm.
to do something. And so it's been really, really good. It's been perfect for me. I'm not isolated because
Mm-hmm.
I work from home and alone, because we have there's five of us that own franchises, right? So we get together, we meet. My I believe, unique franchise experience is that the franchisor, Kathy Thompson, friend, she coaches us too. So I have
Mm-hmm.
a built-in business coach who, with the franchise, gave me a whole systems, a whole plan, a whole everything, and just said, here, get busy. She even threw me some clients,
Wow, that's amazing.
so I hit the ground running.
Mm, that's
And
great.
yeah, and it's so helpful. Like I have any sort of question in the past, I might have yelled over at someone in the office, hey, what do you blah, 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 blah. I just message her and she answers me.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
How does someone get into like a client? How do you find your clients for the work that you're doing?
Yeah. So I've just been talking about this a lot because as year end comes, learning a lot about business. I mean,
Hmm.
it seems sort of common, basic knowledge, but for me, it's exciting. Like I was excited when I actually bought more insurance. Like I can't believe it, right? But I'm telling you, Catherine, I felt so proud of myself for
Yeah,
expanding and getting myself completely covered for trainings and everything. Like
that's
it's just
awesome.
amazing. Um, I know, and then I've been thinking, like as year end approaches, some other sort of business write-offs and stuff like that too. So advertising is a big thing. So I've been
Hmm.
meeting with this woman recently in a print publication, and I know historically print publication doesn't work so well for our business.
Hmm.
Um, and I know that just basically from Kathy doing it for 20 years, and she has paid people to do analytics and stuff like that and provide
Hmm.
that information to us. So for us, it's the internet mostly. I would say Google search is like the most common way that people find me.
Hmm.
I don't know whether tutoring in Hamilton or tutoring, whatever, but we're
Hmm.
up, like we pay for those ads and we're in those top three all the time.
Yeah.
And unique because the other two that come up are tutoring centers, and we don't have a center, we come to the home. So
Hmm.
stand out right away. Um, Word of mouth is big too.
Hmm.
And now in my third year of business, I'm really starting to see that. Like, you hear it and
Hmm.
you nurture it.
Yeah,
But
especially if you do a good job, right? You do
yeah,
the job you're supposed to do, it does, benefit you in the long run. So,
it's so, yeah, because what it captures the best of me is that I'm helping people. I love to help, and I'm helping the parents, right? So when they're
hmm.
reaching out, I'm taking care of it and I'm getting them quality tutors and quickly in a
Hmm.
timely manner if that's what they need or want. Um, and reliable and professional, right? And so what happens then, and now what I'm experiencing is they'll come back next semester, or for the other sibling,
Mm-hmm.
or even now other families will say, oh, I heard about you through my friend so and so. So I'm seeing that build and build and build as well. And of course, Facebook, it's huge because that's where a lot of the moms are, and they
Yeah.
all talk about everybody on
Oh
there.
my goodness. Yeah.
So you got to get in there and try to buddy up and be really nice and positive. I had to stop posting personal biases against, like Trump or whatever, because you just, people
Yeah.
look, right? It's all
Yeah.
over social media. So lots of still, learning, like you and I
Mm-hmm.
today, right? With
Mm-hmm.
all this stuff.
Yep.
Um, that's back to what I was saying to my husband, is that, we grew up, we're the one generation that didn't grow up with this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
We've had to learn it, and we are.
Yep.
Yeah. And I feel proud of myself for figuring out whatever I've figured out.
It's
And every day
awesome.
I'm reminded of what I don't know. So it's very humbling.
Of course, right? There's always something.
Where is that tab? It was here before.
Well, even this was supposed to be live on Facebook, but it didn't work, so we're taping it and posting it. So how did COVID affect like how the work goes? Are they still going into the homes and social distancing, or are you doing virtual tutoring? How does that work?
Yeah, all of the above. So
Yeah,
um,
I guess depends on the family and what they're comfortable with.
for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like back in March, we had no choice, right? Everything was
Hmm.
locked down.
Yeah.
And so everything halted, and that was really scary. Um, but then when things started sort of reopening and all the different regions started reopening, and it was funny as business owners too, like you could tell who was more comfortable even personally,
Hmm.
um, and who wasn't. And so we just made a decision to just always follow the public health guidelines in our own region.
Hmm.
And so it was complicated, Catherine, because they didn't have in-home tutoring listed specifically.
Oh,
Uh,
yes.
and whenever we reached out to like we were all hounding everybody, MP,
Hmm.
just to get a clear answer. Nobody would give us a clear answer. We were to self-declare. So we did notice that there were like in-home speech therapy and all that sort of stuff was allowed to happen. So
Hmm.
bit by bit, we started opening up, but it was mostly just the families and tutors who had already been tutoring
Okay.
before the lockdown, right?
Hmm.
Slowly in the summer, we started opening up, but we had an online platform that we had developed a couple years prior because of poor weather conditions, which was getting in the way of tutors traveling. So we sort of pulled it off the shelves and blew the dust off, and started trying it out in the summer more. Right. And so we've got this amazing interactive online platform that we have amazing tutors using with all ages of kids. And I have probably about a third or so, maybe even more, closer to half of my family's doing in-home. But yeah, they have, they got to wash their hands. They work in a sterile designated environment.
Hmm.
They wear face coverings. Um, Even if they are distance, they still wear the face coverings.
Hmm.
We even had to add in now like flu symptoms and stuff. And, because there's other people in the homes too. So
Hmm.
we say that the house has to be free of any sort of flu symptoms for 72 hours. It's all public health. And everybody, yes, it's very much about everyone's comfortability.
Hmm.
That's for me to manage and navigate and figure out, right? Like I'm not going to I can't force anyone to do anything, and I
Yeah.
don't want that. We want what's best for the student. And, honestly, we've discovered that the online, it can work. We
Hmm.
were pretty against it, to be honest.
Yeah.
Like our core values are in person, in home.
Yeah.
It works the best, and we stick to our guns. But
Hmm.
we've had a lot of success with online as well.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So, question outside of this, is there anything, knowing what you know now, is there one thing that you would wish to tell your younger self if you had a chance? Let's hear it.
Um, okay, I'm assuming you mean specifically about career, right?
Yeah, about your career. I don't want to hear the others. Not on this
Yeah.
anyway. Not on this platform.
Yeah. I would say for sure, in terms of my career, I always struggled with boundaries and leadership.
Mm-hmm.
My characteristics are very clear, direct, opinionated, strong. Um, and I feel like because I didn't always manage that well, it sort of became my nemesis in some way.
Mm.
And I think part of what I discovered when I went through my burnout was that that's not a bad thing.
Mm.
And there's a way for me to be better at that, but also like embrace it too, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's exactly what like Kathy and Cheryl, like just having that past relationship with them and
Mm-hmm.
then reconnecting and them going, but you are funny, Tamara. Like you are smart. You are, and it's like, you're right, I am. You're right, I am. And so that's been what's really been good for me. And if I could tell myself just back then, because, well, I don't even know what I would say, because, anyone who would say, okay, Tamara, just calm down. You're getting too excited. That didn't work. It doesn't work for anybody, right?
No,
We know that.
no.
So honestly, I don't know what I would say other than just listen to what older people tell you because they're smart
Mm-hmm.
and they're usually right.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
that's
And
awesome.
respect that. But I mean, you got to learn for yourself
Yeah,
too.
and we all learn at different times in our life and in different ways, and
Yeah.
yeah.
And you just pick different things hit you at different times too.
Mm-hmm.
So I think really to recognize that when you're 50, I would say to my younger self, when you're 50, honor how smart you are and don't don't think that all 50-year-olds are just corny mom jokes or corny dad jokes. I like that side too, but
That's good advice. I find you funny and smart.
aw, thanks, Kath.
And I'm okay with your being honest and upfront, and I'm good with that. So
Yeah, it's true. Like, and when you find people who are good with you, like good things happen.
yeah.
And that's why I feel also too, like my trainings, doing the suicide prevention training and all the volunteer work that I do around that,
Mm-hmm.
it brings the goodness out in me because that's my passion.
Yeah.
And I no longer get really like angry and excited about stuff as much as, I sit. That's the skill of restraint, but also with the business, right? Like it's just, it's doing really well and I'm
Mm-hmm.
really happy. And I think it's just because I'm surrounded by people who feel the same.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much, Tamara, for sharing your journey and your stories with us. It was great seeing you again
Yeah.
and hearing from you. And I'll post a link on our site for your business as well. So if anybody's interested, they could reach out and ask questions to you.
Yeah.
Okay. And thank you for joining us. Okay.
My pleasure.
Take care.